Well, there's certainly been some tough news on our TV screens, but glad to announce that there's some good news on the horizon as well in the area of the proposed hate speech legislation, which would have impinged not only on freedom of speech, but also freedom of religious expression here in Aotearoa. Joining us on the program now is the CEO of the Free Speech Union, Jonathan Ayling. Jonathan, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Morning, Andrew. Thanks for having me again.
Now, people watching this may have heard some rumours about some proposed legislation. It wasn't a draft bill or anything, it was a discussion paper. But I know at the Free Speech Union you were concerned about it as well. What were the things you were concerned about?
Absolutely. So these were suggestions which came out of the Royal Commission into the Christchurch attack. And there were some really troubling implications for the ideas that were being pursued in this policy document that would really extend the regime that limits our speech in the country at the moment. As it stands at the moment, we have only really cursory hate speech laws that have only very rarely been employed. These proposals would have seen that extended significantly. And as you said, across a range of speech areas. And so we engaged with the public and with our supporters quite extensively. We managed to orchestrate the most successful public consultation before. We got over 80% of the submissions on the subject to oppose the proposals, and we're really pleased to see the Prime Minister shelve the ideas now.
This is very good news indeed. And hey, just to make this clear, nobody's in favour of hate speech here. However, what some people define as hate speech overlaps or cuts across freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and some other basic human rights here in New Zealand.
That's exactly right. You know, hate speech is a really problematic issue. But the problem is the hate, not the speech. And just by getting rid of the people talking doesn't get rid of the sentiments and the issues at play. And so we need to be more engaged and more sympathetic in the way that we consider these issues. And simply getting a vague piece of legislation put into Parliament will not address the issue, and it will create more problems than it fixes.
So from the Free Speech Union's point of view, this is great news. The government has backed down or at least shelved plans to introduce this as a bill before Parliament. Why do you think the change of heart?
Well, there's a number of aspects at play there. One is certainly the fact that the government is dropping in the polls, and this was a very unpopular policy. But I, perhaps less cynically, would like to hope that they've really reflected on the complexity of this issue and the fact that in no jurisdiction in the world where hate speech laws have existed have they been able to accurately define hate. And so this is a very nebulous subject. It's a very vague concept. What I consider hate may differ significantly from what someone else does. And so then to try and arbitrate that in law and before the courts can be very difficult. And we would see a lot of well-intentioned people saying things that they maybe didn't realize was problematic, then drawn before the courts. And so hopefully the Prime Minister is reflecting on more nuanced ways to address the problem of a lack of social cohesion in our nation.
So it's a back down at this point, but we're likely to circle back. This is likely to be introduced by people who have an interest in this area. What would you say to people watching Shine TV? How can we be informed and be prayerfully involved and have our opinions known to our local MPs?
Yeah, well, it's a great question there, Andrew. And kind of just going off that, I would say free speech is always a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. And for my perspective, you know, I think the church and the Christian community has really important speech to contribute to a lot of the questions we're asking as a nation, a lot of the issues that we're addressing. And so that is the purpose of free speech, is that to actually be able to contribute to these difficult questions. And so remaining engaged is very important on that. And we are seeing people trying to bring hate speech and laws in through the back door, really. These terms around misinformation and disinformation that we're hearing are often ways that speech are being controlled, though not through legal means. And so I would encourage all your viewers to remain aware of the shifts that are occurring. And you can do that by signing up to receive our newsletters. We are the Free Speech Union, so you can go on to fsu.nz. That's our website, or look us up on Facebook at Free Speech Union on Facebook. And we try and keep all our supporters regularly up to date across a wide range of movements against speech that are occurring in this nation.
It really is a use it or lose it situation, really, when it comes to free speech. Yes, we don't want to upset anybody. We're not going out of our way to say anything which could be interpreted as hate speech, but having the freedom to express our faith, having the freedom to give a reason for the hope that we have, that's an important and fundamental right.
Absolutely. And I would also just note that, free speech is not what we give to our friends. It's what we give to our enemies. I think a lot of people go, I believe in free speech, but not if you're saying ... The very essence of free speech is this assumption that you'll probably disagree with it, but we still tolerate it in our society. And I think maybe we've forgotten that in a lot of places. And so even as Christians, even within the church, I encourage people to extend that courtesy, extend that grace, if I can use that term, to allow people to hold to their perspectives and engage in conversation, engage in dialogue in that. And in that way, the ones that we disagree with are the ones that we will allow to make their case. And then hopefully, as time goes on, right will out.
And of course, that scripture I was referencing beforehand has the part at the end where we use our free speech with gentleness and respect, and that also applies to social media, right?
I think especially to social media. I think Paul had that in mind.
Yeah. Hey, those web details, again, if people wanted to find out more about the Free Speech Union and connect with what you guys are involved with?
We are online at fsu.nz and on Facebook at the Free Speech Union.
Jonathan, we certainly appreciate the work that you do. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.